Hello, in this video we are going to be seeing the Metaobject and Metaobject list theme settings. These were introduced a few weeks ago on October the 30th of 2024, and by using these, we will be able to allow merchants to reference a Metaobject or a list of them from within the theme editor, so we can then access their properties in a liquid theme. And it is important to note that as a Metaobject can contain pretty much any property, Shopify mentions this over here, stating that themes that are intended to be distributed in the Shopify theme store can only use standard Metaobject definitions when using Metaobject theme settings. A standard Metaobject definition is, as you can see over here, a list of Metaobjects that Shopify has standardized. The only one we have right now is product review, and it is in early access, so we cannot do much with that yet, but this list could expand over time, so you can keep an eye on this. And now let's see all of this in action. So here I have created this development store, and I have created a Metaobject definition of a maker. This will represent the person who created the product being sold, as development stores in Shopify can be populated with test products, which are mostly snowboards. Then this maker represents the person or entity who made that snowboard. This Metaobject has three fields: name, image, and a bio. I will not go too much into detail in there, as there is a video already in the channel where I cover how to create Metaobjects more in depth. I'll be linking that in the video description if you need to see that. And I also added a few entries so we can work with this. So we have maker 1, maker 2, and maker 3. If we go to any of this, we have the name, the image, which I just picked one of the images that come already with the store. And then a bio here, which is just a Laura Meet Soon. And now let's see how to work with this from within the code. So I have the theme cloned locally, and now I'm going to do Shopify theme dev and pass the development, the environment flag with the development value over here that I have specified in this config file. So we use the correct store, and I'm going to press T to open this locally, and then press E to open the editor as well. Now going back to the changelog here, let's go to the type Metaobject, and over here we are going to see this information about it in case you want to read that. But the important thing here are the settings, the values that we need to add for this setting to work. So we need to add type, ID, and label. These are the standard that pretty much any other setting has, but we also have to specify the Metaobject type. So let's create a section over here. Let's name this Metaobjects section, .liquid. And now let's create a schema. The name here will be Metaobjects section. Let's copy this and also create a presets. And over here, name, and let's paste this here as well. And now in settings, let's add a setting of type Metaobject. So we can see over here. Let's make the ID be maker, and the label will be maker as well. However, you can see that we have this red underline because we are missing the Metaobject type property. So let's add that as well. And now, what will be the value for this? So let's go back to Shopify, and in settings, we can go to custom data. And in maker here, we can see the type is maker. So I'm going to copy this and paste that over here. And now if I go to Shopify, to the theme editor, and refresh this page, and look for Metaobject section over here, you can see that I have a setting of type Metaobject and the label of that is maker, and I can select any of the ones that I have created already. So let's select this one, and let's click on save. Nothing will show for now, but we can now do from here section.settings.maker.name, and let's go over here, let's refresh, and here at the bottom you see that I have maker 1. Let's wrap this in a container. The container for this theme is called page width, and we have this over here, and I can access any of the other properties available in this Metaobject. So I can do this section.settings.maker.bio, and I can see this Lauren Ibsen from before, And I can also do section as settings, .maker, .image. I can use the image URL filter, can get this a width of 500 and a height of 800, for example. And then I can do image tag. And over here, we see the image. We can maybe reduce this in half, something like this. And then we have the image, the name, and the bio. You can see over here that I'm accessing this property. So I got the name of the properties that I'm using here, image, name, and bio, from here. So image, name, and bio. And for the bio, as this is a multi-line text, and the text we added had multiple paragraphs, can use new line to br. And we have this now separated into multiple paragraphs the same way that I added it before. Now going back to the settings over here, I can refresh this. And we can see this section with the content, and I can update this with any of the other meta objects that I have created. And the content will be updated accordingly. I can save and refresh over here for this to update, and there we have it. And it's important to understand here the limitations we have at the moment. So only a single meta object type is supported at a time. So if I wanted to here select between all the meta objects of type maker and all the meta objects of another type that I had created in this store, I cannot do this with a single setting. I will need to have two different settings, one for this maker type and one for the other type of meta object that I have. Then we have over here that in order for themes to meet the publishing guidelines for the Shopify theme app store, only standard definitions can be used. So that is what we saw a moment ago in the changelog. And then over here, something related, and is that if shop doesn't have a meta object that is being used as a type here. So if I had maker2, for example, which I have not created in this store, and I save that, I will see a message like this. And now let's go with Metaobject list. So you can see here that the properties are the same, with the exception that now we have a limit property, which makes sense because this is a list. So if we wanted to just let the merchant pick 12 meta objects, then this is how you do it. But you can see here that the default limit and the maximum limit is 50. So if we needed to set 51 meta objects, we will need to create another setting or something like that. So let's now do type meta object list. ID will be makers. The label will be makers. The meta object type will be maker. And we will keep the default limit, so I will not set that property. And therefore it will be 50. Now, let's say here meta object list. And let's see from the theme editor what we have. So from here, let's refresh. And let's select a couple of these. You can see that we have select up to 50 entries. And over here, you can remove from there or from here. And you can rearrange them as well. So now let's save. Let's go here. And now let's start by printing the count. So we can do section, the settings, the maker, dot makers, dot count. And if we do this, we see 3. It's important to note that for meta objects, we have to use count. Normally you will see something like size, but size does not work with meta objects. We have to use count. And then we can also remove them all. So let's do remove all here. And what we can do, if section that settings that makers that count is greater than 0, and only then we will show what's in here. So now we don't see anything here, but now if I start adding a couple of meta objects as well, again, I select this, save, refresh here, and now we see this section. Now let's start looking through them and listing their data. So I will do for maker in section, the settings, the makers. And let's add this over here. And for. And we can copy all of this like this, save, and then use multi-cursor editing to remove everything behind Maker. And we can see here we have Maker 1 and Maker 2, which are the ones that I have selected from over here. So I can refresh. And I'm going to be able to see them from here. And if I add the third one, I can see it change in real time, and I can reorder them as needed. I can also click on any of these to update their data. So for example, let's start this with a paragraph that says test and save this. And we see here test updated. And let's just save this. And if I refresh here, we see everything we just changed updated in the page as well. Something else you're able to do now is to finally be able to reference product variants in section settings. So you can see that if I look for variant in this page, I get nothing because there is not product variant setting as of right now. But Metaobjects do have the possibility of having one of their fields to be a variant or a list of variants. So over here, or let's open this one, you can see that the type of this one is product variant, and I made this to be a list of product variants. Then I created an entry over here. I gave this a name just to be able to reference it. And then I selected these 5 variants. So now, if I go to the code and add a setting, let's make this here be variants. The ID will be variants. And the Metaobject type will be, let's go back over here to the definition to see the exact type we have to put, variants list. So let's copy this and paste it here. I will be able to reference these variants in the code. And actually, this should not be a Metaobject list. It should just be type Metaobject because the list of variants is a property in the Metaobject itself, but we are just going to need to reference one Metaobject at a time. So let's update that. And from the theme editor now, let's select this entry. Let's save. Let's go to the page over here and refresh. And now we can do section, the settings, dot, the property here is variants, yes. And then let's go to the definition over here to find the name we need to use to access this. So variants, once again, variants. And we see here the list of variants, but we cannot do much with that. So instead, let's loop through down. So for variant int 4, and over here, let's do variant.title. And we see nothing because we have to actually put here value. There we have the title of the variant. And we can do also variant.product, the title, reference the title over here. And we see gift card 10, gift card 25, selling plan SKUs and all of that because those are the values that we have referenced in this Metaobject. So if we go here, these are exactly the 5 variants that we have here referenced. And finally, let's pull these changes to see how they look like in the JSON that Shopify generates. So let's do Shopify team pool -d. The -d is to specify my development team, which is the one we've been using to make these changes. And now let's go to index.json. And over here, you can see in the Metaobject section, we have maker, the setting of type maker, of ID maker, we have that it references maker3. Where does this maker3 text comes from? This is the handle of this Metaobject. And the same is being used over here. The other Metaobjects of type maker have the handles of maker1 and maker2. And then for the variants setting it is roughly the same idea. So if I go to variants list over here, you can see that featured variants is its handle. And over here, I see featured variants. This is useful to know in case you need to debug this or edit this manually for one reason or the other. And there you have it. This is how you use the newly introduced theme settings of type Metaobject and Metaobject list. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe for more Shopify related content, and I'll see you all in the next one.